All right, let's dive in. Today, we're not just going to walk through a dry history of artificial intelligence. No, we're going to treat it like the epic story it is, a kind of hero's journey for one of the biggest ideas humans have ever had. And like all great quests, it all starts with one simple but massive question.
And this is it. This is the call to adventure. The one question that kicked this whole thing off. It's a dream that has captivated scientists and storytellers for decades and launched, countless research projects. Can a machine actually think?
And if we're talking about heroes on this quest, our first one has to be Alan Turing. Back in 1950, he basically threw down the gauntlet with what we now call the Turing test. The idea is brilliant in its simplicity. You have a human judging two contestants through a computer screen. One is a person, the other is a machine. If the judge can't reliably tell which is which, well, the machine passes. This became the very first real target to aim for in this dream of a thinking machine.
So, with that question lighting the way, we enter the first act of our story, the dawn of AI. And let me tell you, this was an age of just incredible, almost wild optimism. It really felt like anything was possible.
And things started moving fast. Look at this. We've got the first model for artificial neurons way back in '43. Then, boom, Turing's test in '50. Just 5 years after that, Newell and Simon create the logic theorist, the very first AI program. And then in 1956, the whole field officially gets its name at the now legendary Dartmouth workshop. The adventure was on.
And when I say people were optimistic, I mean they were really optimistic. Just get a load of this quote from Herbert Simon, one of the pioneers, back in 1965. They didn't just think this was possible someday, they thought it was right around the corner.
And he was not the only one. You had Marvin Minsky, another absolute giant in the field, saying pretty much the same thing. They believed they were literally on the verge of solving intelligence itself. But you know how these stories go. Just when the hero thinks they have it all figured out, the plot takes a turn.
And here comes the conflict in our story, the long AI winters. This is the part where all that hype and excitement slams headfirst into a cold wall of reality.
So on one side, you've got these incredible promises of solving intelligence within a generation. And on the other, you have reality. A couple of really influential government reports came out and basically said, hey, where are all the amazing results you promised? And just like that, the funding was cut, the tap was turned off, and the entire field was plunged into a deep freeze. So what happened? Why did everything just grind to a halt? Well, it was really a perfect storm of problems. First, the computers back then were just not powerful enough. The problems got way too complex, way too fast. Second, there was what they called the knowledge acquisition bottleneck. You had to literally hand code every single piece of knowledge into the machine, which was painfully slow. And finally, the real world is messy. It's uncertain, and these early logic-based systems just couldn't cope. This comic just perfectly captures the strange paradox that came out of this period. We managed to build machines that could play chess at a grandmaster level, a super complex, logical game. But that same machine couldn't have a simple, normal chat with you. It became pretty obvious that the path to real intelligence wasn't going to be a straight line.
But every long winter eventually gives way to spring. And that brings us to the rebirth of AI. Let's call it the age of data. Our hero is back, but this time with a totally new strategy.
The great MIT professor Patrick Winston called this the bulldozer age. And what fueled this bulldozer? Two massive game changers. The explosion of data from the internet and a huge leap in computing power, especially from GPUs. The whole strategy shifted. Instead of trying to write elegant, human-like logic, the new idea was to just use all that data and power to brute force your way to an intelligent answer. Think about Deep Blue beating the world chess champion. It didn't think like a human, it just processed possibilities like a giant bulldozer. And this new era forced the field to grow up a little, to come up with a more mature definition of its own goal. It wasn't just about thinking anymore. As Professor Winston put it, AI is about algorithms that can model thinking, yes, but also perception and action. But the secret sauce, the real magic, is hidden right there in the middle, in representations. Finding the right representation became the new key to everything.
And this new focus brings us to the real climax of our story. The quest wasn't just about building a thinking machine anymore. It evolved into a much deeper question. What even is intelligence in the first place? Okay, so I keep using this word representation. But what does it actually mean? And why is it so powerful that it became the key to unlocking this whole puzzle?
So put simply, a representation is just the way you frame a problem. It's how you choose to look at it. Think of it like a map. You could have a map that's confusing and totally useless, or you could have one that makes the path forward completely obvious. It's not about being more powerful, it's about having the right perspective.
Let's make this really concrete with that classic riddle: the farmer, the fox, the goose, and the grain. Now, if you try to think about it as just a sequence of moves, your brain will tie itself in knots. But what if you change the representation? What if, instead of a list, you draw out every possible safe combination of who can be on which side of the river? All of a sudden, you've created a map, a graph, and you can literally see the solution. The path becomes clear because the right representation shows you all the rules and limitations automatically. And this brings us to a really deep truth. Often, the most intelligent thing you can do isn't solving the problem, but finding the right way to see the problem in the first place.
And this idea connects right back to what makes our own human intelligence so special. Professor Winston argued that stories are our ultimate representation. Our unique superpower is our ability to frame the world, our problems, and our experiences as narratives. We understand reality by telling stories about it.
So, the hero's journey for AI is far from over. It started with a simple question: can a machine think? And it's led us to a much, much deeper place. And if our own intelligence is truly built on our ability to tell and understand stories, then that forces us to ask a really critical question for our future. What stories are we teaching our machines? Something to think about. Thanks for watching.